All right, here we go. We're going to jump in here. We have 60 people in here. I don't know if we're streaming live or not. Welcome, everyone. This session is all about you, so we're not going to talk a whole lot about us. Alicia has been a friend of mine for quite some time. Alicia, how many years have we known each other?
Maybe close to 10, 9.
Oh my gosh, look at how long time flies. So, it's interesting. Curtis gave us a lot of. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody here. Tim, when you get here, just go ahead and come up on stage. And I think when you're on stage, you're not muted. So this session's about you. So Curtis and I were talking, and he was asking me questions, and I was throwing out like funny titles, and I almost said this jokingly: "Grow up, know your numbers." And he's like, "That's perfect." So I ran with it, and so we're going to go there. Having coached thousands of agents all across North America, what I've realized is, and I'm going to ask that you write some things down so that it's for your subconscious mind, is you can't out earn stupid. And if you look at, I'm a fan of Dave Ramsey. I'm a fan of a lot of financial gurus out there. And Dave Ramsey says, he did a study on millionaires. And when you look at the income of most millionaires, they make a lot less money than what we do as real estate agents. And what I found was so many real estate agents make a lot of money, yet they're broke. And myself included. I mean, I've made way too much money to be this broke. Can anybody relate to that? No. I mean, my net worth is pretty well now. Yet it was 5 years ago I decided I had enough, and I said I gotta lean into this. And QuickBooks and P&Ls and all that stuff used to intimidate me. And I said, I just need to be better every year after year. And so what I did was I just started leaning into it and started studying the numbers. In fact, you can see this. I've gone as far as tattooing on my forearm math versus drama. So now that we got Alicia and Tim here, Tim, can we hear you well, Sue? Sir, friend.
Yes. Can you hear me good?
Fantastic. Looks like we get a little echo when you're on there. So, Alicia and Tim, I'll just ask that we use the our mute and mute off to be a little bit more conscious of the people in here. So, Tim, let's start with you. Do you remember our first phone call?
I do, Hank. I was in my office on, I think, a Friday afternoon.
Well, I was doing a three-way call, I believe, for Aaron Browning, and I asked you a lot of questions, and you had a team at that point. What did your team look like at that moment that we had our first conversation?
Yeah, Hank, at that point, I think I had a team of probably 11 to 12 people total. We had 2 full-time admins who were on W-2 salaries, agents, and I think 1 maybe ISA.
And what was your monthly nut to crack at that time?
Oh, it was like $18,000, really high.
Okay, and I mean I've seen much worse. And we didn't exactly become friends on that conversation.
No, I was like, who does this guy think he's talking to? I'm Tim Cruz. And when you're working on something and you think it's the only way to do something because you've seen somebody else do it or it's been taught in the industry that way, you're just so locked into it. So that phone call left me a little bit turned off by you a little bit.
And Tim, do me a favor and mute your mic just real quick. I want to check the settings. And in my apologies to everyone that we are not professionals in here, doing the best that we can. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I adjusted the settings. So Tim, what I did was I asked you some questions because we know that Glenn's built the most brilliant real estate team model with the rev share. And I started asking you questions and I started peeling it back. And let's face it, you and I have both made it to where we're at. Ego's helped us and it's also hurt us. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so when you said that, it was like someone literally speaking against and crushing like the baby that you've been trying to birth and build for the longest time. And it's like, within the pit of your heart that it's okay, but it's not great for myself or for my family or for my kids. And so what that convo did for me was it really held a mirror up and let me see for just like flat out the real raw uncut of what I was actually doing and how it looked, and that it was really not a win-win for myself agents, especially for my personal net profit and income.
Well, and I think that's an important word for what we're going to talk about is it's all about the net. And maybe if you're lucky, I'll dance. It's all about the net, not the, okay. I will save you from that. Yet at the end of the day, I mean, net life is what matters. And yet in our industry, all they celebrate and they talk about is gross. Like, what's your volume? It's never like, what's your net life look like? And I happened to start real estate back in 1998 and jumped into residential real estate in about 2007 in Michigan. And what I realized was when my son had open heart surgery at 6 days old, it completely changed my world and it caused me to stop. And I looked around and there wasn't too many people selling real estate that I wanted to be like. And it was at that moment that I realized that I needed to do it different. And so, Tim, you're doing it a little bit different now. What's your team look like today?
Yeah, so my team today, Hank, it's basically dissolved nearly 80%. So as of right now, I have one full-time EA that still works for me. I am phasing myself of officially kind of stopping to sell real estate. Of course, for the past 10, 11 years, there's people that will call me and just say, house to sell my house, and I want you to do it. And so we'll take some very intimate referrals. And just by me being alive and breathing, from what I've done over the past 10 years and what we were doing so far as referral systems, I'll 15 to 17 homes a year just from being alive. So it's me. I have one full-time EA, and my involvement in my sales practice is literally 8 to 9 hours per week. That is that. And then I'm really proactively building out my rev share organization and trekking to get to help more people that way.
Well, and when we really started to look at the numbers, oh man, we switched again. Yeah, we got it muted. When we really started to look at your numbers, what we realized was with netting the most amount of money, it actually made more sense for you to do exactly what you're doing, allow other people to keep more of their split. And again, it's not that I'm anti-team. I'm just anti-team if it's not really working for what you want it to do. And at the end of the day, you're a father, you're a pastor, you've started a church, and full-time real estate agents own 30, 40, 60 homes really didn't buy into your bigger vision. And Glenn's built this model. Tell us a little bit about your RevShare organization, just so everybody has an idea of what it looks like today.
Yeah, so today we're at, I think, 84 gross. I think we're in 6 or 7 different states. I'm at 7 FLQA. I had some of my FLQAs take off or just quit the business over the past maybe year or so. Because, reality was I wasn't building that rev share organization at all. It was all like people just calling me and say, hey, Tim, you're at EXP, I want to come over. And what I realized was talking to you on that phone call and just what the company's done and how it's changing people's lives. Like for me to not be out here trying to build the organization is really a disservice to myself and to so many other great agents. So long story short, we're 84 gross agents, 7 FLQA, and just having a lot of fun.
That's one of the things we talk about is knowing your numbers. And if all of you are looking to grow your rev share, I'm going to encourage you to track your numbers. And I believe I can actually share some screens. So I'm going to get a few more things pulled up. And what I'll do is I'll share every single day I go in and I track my FLQA. I track my rev share and process. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And it's amazing what you focus on expand. So let's jump over to Alicia real quick. Alicia, welcome, my friend.
Thanks.
Alicia, you started coaching with me back in 2017 when my non-compete was up.
Yep, it was a fun start there, Hank.
Well, and what I love about it, Glenn today was talking about Buying Success Magazine and personal development. And when my non-compete came up, I had more demand than supply. And Alicia, you sent me a $10,000 check up front to secure your spot. Tell us a little about what it felt like to commit to that sort of number and what it did for you moving forward.
I think the biggest thing was that I wanted to be all in, and I knew that if I did that, I was going to hold myself accountable, and that I knew I wanted to do it and that you could help me. And doing that up front helped, I think, set us up for some success and to get through some life moments that came ahead.
Who besides Alicia and myself, and I know Tim too, who's had life kick them? I promised Jason guessing that I would watch my language since I'm representing corporate and up on stage. So who's ever had life punch him in the jaw besides Alicia and I? I mean, all of us, right? And so Alicia, you've had people along the way inspire you by some of the things that they said. Like, what was it? You can't be a mom and be a six-figure earner.
Oh, 100%. I went to a big real estate convention, and a mom who was successful that I thought was successful told me there's no way that you can do this if you don't put your kids in daycare. And I have three kids, 10 and under right now, and they're still not in daycare. And now I'm the breadwinner of the family, so I kind of used her as a little bit of fuel to say, you can do it.
Well, and you just recently took a month at a beach house down on the ocean. Tell us a little bit about that and what that was like to set your world up where you didn't have to be tied because you still took listings, you sold your own personal home while on vacation. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. So we sold our house. We decided that we were going to do this because kids are learning virtually. And to go back to knowing your numbers, we knew that I could sustain this even if I did zero real estate business while I was there. And we still did a listing and sold it. And I had, I think, 5 closings that month, all from the beach. And we knew that we were set up to at least have some fun. And I knew how many hours I had to work. You know, the 20% we always talk about, that we could identify what my activities were. I knew if I could just do that, then the rest of the day I could do whatever I wanted.
Well, and that's a lot of our conversation is when you know your numbers. And now we teach just some things, and Tim, feel free to jump in here. We have what's called a success code, and I've actually got it tattooed on my hand. And so what we talk about is we talk about time on task, or a skill set, time on task, and experimentation. And the goal is to figure out what is the 20% that makes 80% of the money. And so what Licious is talking about is she figured out the 20% that makes 80% of the money, and then she stopped doing the 80% for the most part. That's where I'm going to suggest, if you're in real estate, rather than do more, because that's what's celebrated in our real estate world, is consider freezing your lifestyle. And I saw Tim Harris on here. And if you don't know Tim and Julie, they've done more for the real estate world and coaching in their little pinky than I've probably done in my whole career. Make sure you check them out. Tim's got a great book that they just wrote. Once you identify your 20% that does the 80% of the income, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Go spend 80% of your time to make 20% of the money in rev share, or spend 80% of your time buying investment properties, or whatever it is to create another revenue stream. Because here's what I found with most real estate agents. They make a great income, yet they're all freaking broke. I know, broad stroke. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do is, what are the revenue streams that you can have that you aren't just trading dollars for hours? And Alicia, talk to us a little bit about the different revenue streams that you're working on, and how long you've been working on them and what that looks like.
So we have real estate, coaching, rev share, some smaller things. Those are the 3 big ones. And I just looked at the numbers for the last month, and that was net. I always look at the net income. It was 22,000. So that's after the splits with EXP, after the things you have to pay. 22,000 for last month while I was at the beach. And I've been working on real estate for 14 years, coaching, let's say 3 years, 2 years really active, and rev share. About 2.5 years ago, I got my first person, and now we have 5 FLQAs, and we're in 4 states, and I have 12 people total.
That's awesome. And what I love about that, that's the hardest thing, is just get your first couple wins. When we look at the success code, we talk about experimentation until you get a victory. Once you get a victory, you get confidence. Alicia, what's your confidence like now around attraction and EXP?
Way better. Way better. I don't even know what brought me here when I first came here, except for the people and the opportunity. I didn't understand the opportunity at first. Now I understand it, and I'm like, if you're not seeing this, this is crazy. It's a crazy opportunity.
It is. And Tim, let's go back to you, my friend. Tim, I remember having a conversation with you. I was at my retreat home, and we were talking about attraction. It was probably about a year or two ago. And what would you have liked to have gone back and told yourself in that conversation? Because you were interested, you just weren't committed yet. And that's my story. It doesn't mean that it's yours.
Yeah, I was interested in what RevShare could do for my family and what it could do for the agents, but I had never committed myself because I was dabbling into, really breaking up with my real estate mega team. And I knew that it was great, but until I went to go and literally commit myself and begin to, one, be accountable to the numbers and begin to track the numbers, it was just a cool idea. And so, for example, now I can look back over the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and see exactly who I've spoken to, where they are in the process, who's watched the video, who we on a three-way phone call with, and just tracking the numbers out. And it's only a matter of time before showtime.
I love
I
it.
love it.
And you're
And you're
using
using
the
the
CRM called Grow, I believe. How many people do you have in there now?
I have 14 people in there right now.
You know, one of, and Tim, if you don't mind muting in between. Um, one of the things that I love about the people that I run with is this is what our conversations are like. We talk about, hey, show me your schedule, and I'm not big on drama. So if anybody has drama to bring to, we first look at the math, and I'm not willing to talk about drama unless you've been doing the math. So for example, let's face it, with a company growing at the pace that we are, there might be some drama. How Tim and Harris and I ended up meeting was Sean Kokoska was an ex-business partner of mine, and Sean joined through Tim. I mean, our company is so much better off for Sean being here. And the reality is you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. At the end of the day, we're lucky to have Tim and Sean here at the company. And so what we got to do is we've got to look at it. If you just have one listing and you lose one listing, that's a big deal. If you have 10 listings and you lose one, it's not that big of a deal. And so my question is, where do you focus on? And most of the time when I ask people about, hey, can I see your schedule? Their schedule doesn't really support the math, meaning they're flying by the seat of their pants. Tim, if we looked at your schedule right now, would it tell us our goals just by looking at your schedule?
For sure.
And one of the things that we speak to is subtraction leads to multiplication, addition leads to subtraction. And Tim, you're a good example of that. Is you were doing so much that with just adding stuff, it wasn't necessarily adding to your net income. Now you've made some pretty good subtractions. And oftentimes when we subtract, we're going to pull the arrow back in order to shoot forward. And recently, Tim, you've just decided to pull the arrow completely back and jump off the cliff.
Yeah, Hank, if other people are doing it, and I have this, everyone has what we call internal talk, and is what we tell ourselves throughout the whole day. And I'll let you guys all hear what I tell myself. Like, I am smarter and I am brighter than my bank account and my net profit, my net worth right now. And so I look at people in the company who are like the RevShare heroes, and they took the opportunity, took advantage of it, and went forward with it. And I woke up one day and I was just sick of not taking advantage of it. And here we are. So yeah, I have taken a lot of stuff that I was doing so far as like income producing ideas or things. And I have put a lot of my energy over into the attraction model. And I got this from you, Hank, on a phone call, I think back in June or July. It is simple as book a call, have a call every single day. That is my goal. Book a call and have a call.
Well, and because let's look at the numbers there. Everybody do this for me. Write down when you joined EXP. And so if you write down when you joined EXP, and if every single working day your goal was to have a call, book a call, here's what happens. You get better. So you need skill set. And the reality is most of us are getting ready to get ready. And when you have a call and book a call every single day, what happens is you get time on task. You get better with your experimentation. You figure out what works. There's no difference between a listing presentation and an EXP attraction appointment. And if you end up doing your listing presentation where it's more of a needs analysis, I believe that you'll end up doing your EXP presentation that way. So let's look at the math behind that. If you have a call and book a call every single day, at the end of the year, you probably talk to 250 people. Now, some people think, well, Hank, like, how do I do that? You might start at the 50, and the 50 is, hey, how are you? It's not actually about EXP. It's like when I met my wife, she didn't know that I wanted to marry her. I met her at the 50 and I courted her. I took her on a date. I met her family. Then I brought her to the 20. The 50-25-1 is the math behind what we do is, you'll see the picture of me with my shirt off. The reality is most people, when they see me for the first time, they're turned off. Why? Because I'm not neutral. And when you're not neutral, what happens is you get more math of people seeing you. And what we want to do is we want to have math on our side. When you have 50 people a day see you, what happens is that's 18,000 connections over the course of the year. Well, then what we do there is we just move people along the cycle of 20 conversations. A conversation can be a simple text message back and forth. And then you look to have the 5. And Tim, we were talking about earlier, we can remember where we were when we had certain conversations because those were deep conversations. They weren't tiptoeing around. If you would have chose to react, you and I might not be in a relationship today because all I did was care about you and I pushed on some pain points. And ultimately, I think we're pretty good friends now.
Yeah, and actually one day I said, well, Hank, what if by being so raw that you offend someone and they like you break up their relationship? And I loved your reply and I wrote it down, never forgot it. You said, I care more about the person than I do the relationship, which means you care more about being just given harsh realities and harsh truths versus trying to keep them like liking you and them living this like fake or not their best lives possible. So I love that.
Well, and I think that's a key point is I think you need to make a decision in life is if relationships are more important than the person. And I decided with my wife a while back that I'm more interested in helping the person in front of me than being in a relationship with them because I think so many times what we do is we sugarcoat things. Now, the other thing is it's important to do it without judgment. I don't need to be right. I want to know when I'm wrong. And so many of us, what we want to do is we want to get prescription. And I'm going to encourage you to spend more time on diagnosing, especially when you're in a needs analysis, rather than saying EXP is the answer. How about you take your thumb and push on the pain point? I mean, now we've got math. You can look back. If they talked about, I was talking with an agent yesterday that I talked to when we had 4,000 agents, and we did the math on him not coming over, on how much stock he left on the table, rev share, because he helped people come to the company that he was at. And at the end of the day, this whole session is about knowing your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, more is your answer. And we've all heard it before, less is more. And I believe that when you can raise your standards, you end up getting better results, and then you end up attracting more. So Alicia, you've been a little bit, we've been a little bit loud here. What's your 2 cents in all of this?
Well, you were explaining 50-25. Well, we didn't get to the 1, and if you want to explain that, but I also want to say the 50, if you do the 50 and you get seen and you go to the 20 and the 5, it naturally leads to the 1. And almost every activity that we do in real estate leads to, all we're trying to do is get an excuse to have a conversation. So if you're having a client event, if you're doing a postcard, if you're handwriting a note, if you're going up to somebody, it's all to get that one conversation. And to know the numbers around that, it will monumentally change your business.
Yeah, and then and we teach a thing called the 6 C's, which is the first one is commitment, the last one is consistency. And at the end of the day, if you're consistent, most human beings are adaptable. And if you get enough time on task, you're going to win over time. Rob Tuff, one of my friends on here, said, "What's a good text? How do you start a text conversation?" So, or I'm sorry, it was April that asked that. Here's where I think emotional intelligence comes in. Meet them where they're at. And it depends on what your relationship is with them. And yeah, what Dwayne says, just be human. And so if you don't know them, you're probably going to approach it differently than if it's Tim. I mean, Tim, like my text conversations with you are like, yo, I mean, use emotional intelligence and stop overthinking it. I often, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. And if we're going pretty fast here, if you like what we're throwing down, I've created a group called EXP Family Tree. It's not line specific. Glenn shared an article the other day about having no silos. And so one of my frustrations is I'd rather have it be about EXP than about your upline. And so I believe that you should be the change that you want to see. And so we've created the group called EXP Family Tree, and I'm going to be doing a lot of the stuff that I used to charge money for in coaching for free for everyone at EXP. And I'm doing that because Glenn's model has given my wife and I freedom. We've just hit our 7th month with our freedom number. And now it's about impact. And my goal is in the next year to impact as many people as possible. And great question, Justin, Facebook or workplace? And every time I meet with Glenn or have a conversation with Glenn, I ask him, what can I do to help the company? And Glenn said this, he goes, get people on workplace. Hank, stop communicating with people. And this wasn't word for word, so I'm probably adding a little Hank to it. Stop messing around on Facebook. Get people on Workplace, because that's the pulse of Workplace. So, as much as Glenn's done for us, I believe that we should honor Glenn. And when Glenn has simple requests like that, get on Workplace, because and so, for example, if you ever want to reach out to me and it's about EXP, please don't do it on Facebook. Do it on Workplace, and I'll do my best to always be available for everyone, because that gives us the pulse of the company. So the EXP family tree, it's on Workplace. Tim and Alicia, what's going through your mind when it comes to know your numbers, grow up, be an adult?
The first thing is that how many people we talk to whenever you ask, what is your nut to crack or what do you want? Very, very few percentage know what they want. So, and I know when we talked first, I was like, I don't know, what's a nut to crack? I don't even know how much I need to make. If any of you don't know right now, and that's all you do when you leave here is to figure out exactly what your nut to crack is, rev share and real estate, it'll be amazing.
Well, and real quick, Tim, before you jump in, is there anybody from corporate here that knows, is this internal so that I can show some numbers, or will this be out there for everyone? Because I'd like to be able to share some projections and some spreadsheets that I put together. So let me know in the comments if someone from corporate can let me know. Tim, what about you?
Yeah, I would say get really clear about what do you want. I mean, let's be real, the first 8-9 years of my real estate life, doing and following and building a business in real estate because I thought it was what the social norm was. Like if you did 15 million plus, 20 million plus, 100 homes a year, you were respected. And that's just what I went to pursue. And I never thought about, well, if I make that much money, how much am I going to bring home to profit and pocket? When in reality, I could have had a much prettier and better life and been in my purpose from God on earth years ago, had I known that number up front. So what do you want? What's the income goal? What's the nut to crack? Do you want to be a net worth millionaire? Like, get crystal clear on all of those things and go put an action plan together for what you want and not what society says you should want in this business. That's a big one, I think.
Well, I think that's huge, is knowing what you want, because if you go back to, sometimes a business plan is as simple as, does this bring me closer or further away from what I'm looking for? And if you get down to the micro leads to the macro. And so I was told that because we have guests here, I'm not going to show specific numbers yet. However, in the EXP family tree and a training, I'll open up my numbers to everyone. Like, this is one of the things that I had a challenge with in the real estate industry, was we put people up on stage and you didn't know the real story. I mean, I remember somebody being celebrated like, this is what we should shoot for, and they hadn't paid the IRS for 3 or 4 years, and their life behind the curtain was just a disaster. So one of the requirements that I have, or standards to be in my circle, is we show each other our P&Ls. We have real conversations, and it's completely leveled up the conversations when you start to know your numbers. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is I've documented every single hour that I've worked since 2016. So I choose to book every hour on the hour. And here's how I believe all three of us work, because I've had the honor of coaching both of you at some point and at some level. Is we got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. What I encourage people to do in their real estate is figure out what your phase 1 is. And I'll just use general numbers for most real estate agents. Phase 1 might be 5,000. That means that you're just paying the bills. You're not really getting traction, yet you're not going backwards. And that's what we call phase 1 income. Phase 2 is where you can start having a little bit of fun, not a bunch of fun. You can pay your taxes. Oh, hey, there's a concept. Hey, if you're in this crowd and you haven't filed your taxes yet for like 2019 and paid them, grow up. Yes. Do me a favor. If that's you, it's time for you to face what scares the heck out of you. I've got a friend named Chris, and I'll share a video in the EXP family tree of when I called him out. He hadn't done his taxes for I think 5 years, and the scary thing is he had the money, and he did a neat video on me calling him out on what it did to change his life, and I can tell you, I know what it's like to have the pressure of the IRS down your back. I've never not paid my taxes, yet I know how much it used to suck the life out of me. Yet I digressed. Sorry. If we look at it, 5,000 phase one, 10,000 phase two, phase three might be 15,000. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Solidify your income to get to phase two. So for example, if your average commission is $5,000, get to 2 deals a month where it's like clockwork. Stop doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 deals a month, because what happens is this roller coaster. Now what I'm going to encourage you to do is consider working on RevShare or a new success code 3 to 5 hours a week. Now I did that. I started in June of 2017 when I had my first victory. It was 18 months before I had my first victory with RevShare. So I worked on skill set, time on task, experimentation until I got my first victory. It was in January of 2017 when I hit my phase one income with RevShare, and that was $10,000. See, what I do is I work 3 to 5 hours a week on a new revenue stream until it hits that phase one number, because once you get there, it's now a math equation on what it takes to bring that to a phase three number. See, what we do is now we get predictable success out of the businesses that we want, and we're not just trading dollars for hours. Who in the chat here would like to stop trading dollars for hours, and you'd like to start working on a long-term wealth type income and not just being just over broke? So one of the most important things that you can do is freeze your lifestyle and start having a budget. And I've been interviewing a lot of people on finances because I could never understand what it was going to take to retire. And one of the things that I learned along the line was fixed expenses versus variable expenses. And so one of the financial advisors, and if you're in the EXP family tree, I'll give you access to this program that I pay for. It's called cash flow mapping. What my financial advisors did was they flew in for a weekend of fun. I took them jeeping, and we sat down and we pulled out all my fixed expenses. And we knew what that number is each and every month. So we take that money, we put it in the account, it's $9,500, and then we looked at our variable expenses. See, the challenge was as much money as we made, it was tough to say that we couldn't afford something. The challenge was our variable expenses. We never knew where we were from a pulse standpoint. When you separate out your variable expenses on your budget, it gives you a pulse on your numbers every single day. So my wife and I do is we use a credit card. I know Dave Ramsey says you shouldn't use a credit card. We pay it off every month. And we know exactly where we're at throughout the month on where our variable spending is. And it's given us so much freedom and happiness and control to not have to worry about like beans and rice. We know if that we're halfway on to our variable expenses and we're 3/4 of the way through the month, we can buy the fast passes and not have to worry about it. Who here would like to have a fun life and not just be on beans and rice all the time, and would like to live your life a little bit? I saw Gogo on here. If you guys don't know Gogo, you should get to know her. She's great on social media, and she is a giver. Gogo, we need to redo the interview with you on your numbers because we got a little bit off track. Gogo, what's been the biggest things that you've learned about knowing your numbers? Because you're intense with your numbers. If you want to jump up on stage with us, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to comments there.
Yeah, sure.
By the way, Gogo said, I'm already retired. I don't need to trade dollars for hours. So
I
that's
love
awesome.
it.
I guess I can unmute myself as I figure out how to walk and talk at the same time, huh? So for me, I'm very goal oriented, and so I always can achieve anything, but it took me a while to realize that life works like a GPS. So wherever you are at right now is considered an A, and wherever you are going, it's considered your Z. Well, if you don't know where you're going, which again is numbers, then your internal GPS cannot take you there. So as Tony Robbins says, if you are as vague as, oh, I just want to make money, well, $1 is money, you're going to make $1. So numbers really became a problem, as I heard you say it earlier, Hank, that us realtors can make a lot of money, but we all broke. And I've been there not long ago, actually, where I finally snapped it in the butt and I said something, we have to do something about it. Because we were very, very good at making money, but we didn't have a clue where the heck it's going. And so I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that just goes poof. And so finally, but I don't like details. Hank, as much as I love numbers, I don't love what it takes to track it. Like to sit down. Like I remember the first time we had to track everything starting from our like Netflix. was like, seriously, Netflix is like $14 a month. But then my financial advisor was, well, if you have 100 of those $14 different things going out in a month, now you're talking real money, you have to track it. And I was like, oh gosh. So tracking was the hardest part. But after you have the systems in places, oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite things to log in with my morning matcha and just kind of look at the numbers and watch it grow. Also, if you don't track it, you can grow it.
Say that again. That's one of my favorite quotes from you.
If you don't track it, you can't grow it. You can't watch it grow if you don't know where you started and where you're heading.
Well, and Gogo, would you mind muting in between talking, because we're getting echo off of yours? What I loved about the conversation with Gogo when we had our Zoom, because Dave Kennard's done a great job of gamifying the influencers group, and Gogo and I are in the beta group together, and so I've been interviewing the other beta members and sharing numbers, because I believe that when you start to understand numbers at another level, Sean Kokoska, who is another great coach within the company, once shared with me that Gary Keller required him to have a balance sheet every single day. Maybe it was every day, every week. And it was a couple of years back that I started tracking my numbers every single day. So every single day I go into my bank accounts, I plug them into my spreadsheet. We have our projections in there. We have our net worth. We have our credit scores. And we call it the one sheet. So my wife and I will do business planning together, and then I can just hand her the one sheet, and she knows exactly where we're at financially. And it's interesting, since I've been doing that, my net worth has climbed much, much higher. Gogo, Alicia, or Tim, are you guys tracking your numbers every single day at that level? Or what is it that you're using?
I'm tracking things in a Google Excel sheet. So I have my list, like GoPro said, make your list. So I have about 121 agents on that list. So I'm tracking number of attempts, number of conversations, number of videos that people agree to, like the appointment being set. I'm then tracking number of videos watched, and then getting them back out for a Zoom follow-up call and or for a three-way phone call. So I'm tracking all those numbers in the Google Excel spreadsheet.
I love it. I love it. So you're not getting super fancy. And someone asked the question, Gogo, what are you using to do your finances?
So I actually belong to a group called M1, and the reason I joined that group is because of financial reasons. That was my biggest one. It's called the Whole Life Millionaire Group. And so it's not just becoming a millionaire or being one with money, but it also having your life together. So because it's no fun being maybe fat or whatever that is you wouldn't like to be and being a millionaire. So it's having your whole life together, what the group is about. And they gave me a spreadsheet. They have a financial guy in the group, and they are the one who gave me a spreadsheet. And that's a spreadsheet what I use for finances. Now, because I have multiple businesses, that spreadsheet was originally designed just for like an individual or a household that maybe just have one source of income, like an actual salary, where I have multiple sources of income. So I took that spreadsheet and I split it into two. I made a duplicate, so sad. So I have a expense. So the spreadsheet contains everything, every money that's coming in and where it's coming from. And it also separates it from what we call horizontal money versus vertical money. So horizontal money is while you are sleeping, you're horizontal, so you're making horizontal money. That's what Warren Buffett says. If you can't figure out a way how to make money while you're asleep, you'll never be wealthy. That I track that, and I also track my vertical money, which is where I trade my time for money, which is less and less and less nowadays. And so that, and then I also track the expenses. And if you think about it, guys, I don't know, I was so ashamed of myself, but before I looked into my credit card, I had services I've been paying for years that I haven't used in years, but I was paying on it just because I was too busy to stop and check my credit card statements to see what the heck I'm actually paying for.
Well, and Gogo, I hear that a lot is, oh, I have people for that. And write this down. You can't leverage what you don't understand. And you don't want to wake up when you're 60 years old and all of a sudden be broke. Like, you don't want to be there. And I believe that once you have victories and you have confidence, it's a whole different world. Yes, M1 from Rock Thomas, one of my good friends, Wayne Salmons, went through that. And Rock does an excellent job of onboarding people. I'm actually going to sign up for N1, I believe, just to observe his process. I've heard that his process of onboarding people making them feel part of the community. It's just been phenomenal. Here's what I love about it is there's really no competition. I'm going to challenge everybody to raise their financial IQ. See, it's not about how much you make, it's how much you can keep. And if you don't have confidence around taxes, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Anytime I fear something, I lean into it. I used to fear getting audited by the IRS. I no longer fear it. What I know is every time I go through something, I grow through it, whether it was going through my bankruptcy, and at some point I'm sure I'll be audited by the IRS. I don't do anything wrong. I don't do anything illegal. And there's a whole lot of interpretation. So I'm getting my ducks in a row where I feel confident going into an audit. I just had my taxes audited by a separate third party. And it's amazing how many different interpretations that you can get about the same set of data. So Alicia, you have a coaching program called Mother Hustlers because you have a heart for moms and women. Tell us a little bit about what you all focus on in Mother Hustlers when it comes to numbers.
Well, first, we do business a lot different, and we just do. If you're a mom out there, like you know that that's true, or a parent in general. And we try to simplify things. Before I used QuickBooks, we used Post-its that did a weekly and monthly check-in, and we just knew the net income that we were bringing in. So we focus a lot about numbers and things that you can do practical, that if you don't have a huge budget, that you can still do this and make a lot of money, and take some of the things off that are high expenses for like large teams that you might not need as a solo mom or a small team. And we focus about lead generation, doing things a little bit differently, and layering in your life. So knowing your numbers with that, like you can go do an activity with your family and it be lead generation if you can prove that that's what makes it happen at the end of the year.
Well, and I love it. And speaking of numbers, you started leaning into YouTube. How long ago was that?
It was about a year ago. And when you were talking about numbers, I track my real estate weekly and monthly, and I track RevShare daily, but YouTube I'm tracking multiple times a day. And it's amazing what you can see from your numbers, and when you focus on it, how much things grow.
Well, and it's been fun because you've been consistent with it, and I egged you on a little bit as your coach, and you kicked my butt, and I knew that most likely based on because I was interested and you were committed. Walk us through a little bit of the numbers on the important numbers when it comes to YouTube. Let me know what it cost me $300 too, Josh. Walk us through your numbers around YouTube.
So right now I have 360 hours of watch time. So humans are typing in information, looking for information, and they're finding me 360 hours a month, which is pretty amazing to me. And I know that if I create one video every single week, that's created that momentum. It started off with very few views, and now each video is like an advertisement for each other. The most important number is retention, which I'm well over 50%. You want 40% or over. Retention and being able to connect and have people reach out to you. So in your comment section, that's where the number of people who reach out to you are really going to help you solidify your numbers and the amount of time that they watch.
Well, and what I love about what you did, Alicia, was you spent some money on this journey with doing it. You spent $5,000, spent some time with Gary Vee. You spent, I believe, $5,000 on Sonny's program.
Yep, Sonny Lenarduzzi. Yep.
Talk to us, and then Tim, we're going to jump to you. Talk to us a little bit on how you choose to make those investments, because I mean, when we talk numbers, those are some pretty big checks that you've written.
Yes, and not always did everyone believe in what I was doing. So if you're willing to invest the money in yourself, and we've always talked about what are you going to bet on more than just yourself? I'm always a safe bet, and I know that if I knew the numbers, I'd researched it, I knew that it could work if I knew what I was doing, but I didn't want to throw spaghetti at the wall. So that's why I invested the money, so I knew exactly what I was doing, and it put me in the best light, because as a mom, I didn't have all that time to figure it out on my own. It was just impossible. So that's why I paid to be in a Gary Vee session. That's why I paid to be with Sonny. That's why I paid you up front, so I could shorten the learning curve and kind of pad my numbers to get me there faster.
Well, and what I love about it is I truly believe that the best return on investment, and that's why I love that Glenn says we're not really a real estate company, we're a self-development company, is the more you invest in yourself, the better ROI that you'll get. If you look for Alicia on Facebook or YouTube, you can find her there. And I want to jump to Tim. Alicia can answer that other question in the chats. Tim, you've also been working on a coaching program. Tell us a little bit about that and your thought process through it.
Yeah, so I have a coaching company out there called Purposeful Agents LLC, and it's essentially an education and training company for real estate agents that helps them to work towards their purpose and not just work for money or doing what they think they should be doing. And so for me, after that conversation we had, Hank, on the phone call a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, that one conversation allowed me to dive deeper into my purpose on earth. Like the reason that God put breath in my body and then I'm breathing today, I'm now doing that. And I'm just, I happen to earn income that helps me fund my purpose on earth. And so I know that there are literally thousands of other realtors in the world in the exact same way. So my company helps people build a profitable real estate practice and helps them go identify their purpose and spend more time in that purpose by being more free from the real estate sales businesses.
Well, and this is where our conversation goes, because I believe that real estate has so many spin-offs, and it's all about helping people, right? When my son had open heart surgery, what I realized was when I stopped showing up, I stopped getting paid. And Tim, I believe that you and I have had conversations about the 4-hour work week. Am I remembering that correctly?
We did, yes.
And so if you haven't read that book, that 11 years ago, I got on a mission to not ever have to trade dollars for hours anymore. And I'll share this in the EXP family tree, how to make $1 million. And this was fascinating to me. So I'm going to ask that you consider this. There's something that you've been through in life that you could help another human being. And I believe times are a little bit different now. I believe that people right now want to learn from people who aren't too far out of touch. For example, if you're a 7th grader going into 8th grader, wouldn't you rather learn from a 9th grader than somebody who hasn't been to school in 20 or 30 years? And so I'd like you to walk through this process real quick. What if for the next 12 months, you help 10 people get through something that you've gone through? Maybe it's going from the corporate world into real estate. Maybe it's going from being a single woman to being married and changing your real estate career. If you have solved the problem, other people would love to save the pain of figuring it out on their own. So let's say for the next year, you don't get paid anything from that. What you get paid is the feel good of helping another human being. I believe that's one of the best things in the world, is helping someone else. Would anybody agree with that? Type yes if you're still paying attention. The second year, here's what I'd like for you to do. Help 10 people and charge them $200. Now let's look at that. And here's where people in math starts to come in. Well, Hank, I'm going to spend 3 to 5 hours a week and I'm going to make 10 times 2, which is $2,000. I can just go sell another house and make more money than that. That right there is why most real estate agents will stay broke, because time on task will be talent every single time. Now in the third year, what you do is if you can help 10 people for free the first year, 10 people for $200 the second year, 100 people for $200 the third year, now we're looking at $20,000. Now we look at the fourth year and we add another zero to it. If you can help 10 people the first year for free, 10 people the second year for $200, 100 people the third year for $200, the fourth year you help 1,000 people. Now we're starting to talk some real money. Now it becomes a math equation. Plus, you learn so much more by helping others do it. And that's where things start to get to momentum, which is the other part of the success code. So Tim and Alicia, both of you have been working on some digital income. And Gogo, are you still up here? I believe that you had, I don't know your numbers as closely. You have digital income streams too, right?
Yes, 95% of my.
Oop, you broke up.
Yeah, 90 to 95% of my income is passive and digital.
Isn't that awesome? That is awesome. We just broke the $500,000 mark since January 2017 through Kajabi, and that was all digital income. Now, what people don't realize is, Gogo, you might have had more success earlier than I did. It took me 5 years of hitting my head against the wall with Infusionsoft and other programs before I even made my first dollar. I bet it was 5 years before I made my first dollar in digital income. And so oftentimes what people see is you look like an overnight success. Yet I know, Alicia, you're working all hours of the night, aren't you?
Depends on the night, but are you talking about on Mother Hustlers? Or...
Well, I'm just talking in general. It's funny how many times I'll see a post from you or something that you're working on, and it'll be, when you have time, 5 minutes here, an hour here. Tell us a little bit about that.
100%. Um, so I don't have a blocked schedule other than coaching. So some things I just do squeeze in when it's the digital project, because the real estate and regular coaching is the baseline. So that's my extra 3 hours a week, right? We talk about anything we want to lean into, do it 3 hours a week so it doesn't distract you from your main gig. Yeah, in the middle of the night, whenever it happens.
Well, and that's the thing, is oftentimes we have shiny objects and we'd rather be doing that than what's actually making us money. And so the digital income, I use a platform called Kajabi. And so what I believe that easiest way of doing that is to go help people do what you've already done, and then just simply hit the record button. And the book that I got this from was Millionaire Messenger by Brendon Burchard. When I read that book, I remember sending it to Sean Kokoska, my coach at the time, and said, "Hey, I need you to read this book because I think I'm going to go start my own coaching company." And Sean was actually my boss too. And as many of you know, I ended up leaving my company to start my own coaching company. And what I did was, every time I taught something, I hit the record button. I'm going to show you an example here, and I think I can share the screen. Well, I don't know that I know how to do that. My apologies. If I could, what I'll do is, if you guys are interested, show us the digital money, Hank, and then join us in the EXP family tree. I'll do a separate training just on digital income, where I'll actually get in the Kajabi program. I'll show you how I've built everything out. I believe that we have our program called 36 to Life, which is easily a $200 product. We have So You Want to Be a Coach, which we're just finishing up the filming of that. So if any of you are interested in becoming a coach, I mapped out every single thing that it takes to start a coaching business. See, I was looking for a brokerage for coaches, much like we had for real estate agents, and it wasn't out there. So I just started documenting it. See, every time that you have a problem, if you slow down just enough, you can end up having an income from documenting that process. And nobody loves to reinvent the wheel. So if you go to EXP Family Tree, I'll do a separate training on that, again, for free. Many of you might think that I'm setting you up to sell stuff. I actually, on November 10/23/04 was our anniversary. I'm all in with EXP. So almost everything that I used to pay, our coaching business did over $500,000 in net revenue. We're just giving it away now. Why? Because Glenn's given us such freedom. The only program that I'm not giving away is the So You Want to Be a Coach right now. So if you're with EXP, I'm just opening up access to it. I feel like Glenn's done so much for me. It's time to give back. So Tim, what went through your mind? Can somebody tell me how much time we have for this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we open up to any questions? I've been trying to watch the chat as we go and answering them as we go. Does anybody have any questions for us up on the panel?
As they're thinking about their questions, I have one question for them.
Sure.
Who do you have in your life that can help expand your financial thermostat? So Hank and I bounce numbers, and some of the coaches bounce. You have this digital product. I have this one. What would it look like if you made 400,000? How is that doable? And then once you see that it's doable, it just lights this fire under you. Who do you have in your life that can do that for you and push you and say, well, why couldn't you make 300,000? What would that look like? And then you can play with the numbers.
Well, and I think that you need to know what your net life income is. So, for example, my wife and I, as long as we make $360,000 a year, we're going to choose higher net life versus more money. And then what you can end up doing is you can dialing in numbers. For example, you could work with all buyers to make 360 grand a year. You could work with I believe the best real estate formula, a broad stroke here, is 24 listings, 12 of which go and buy homes. So you have 24 clients in order to do 36 transactions. I believe that you can do 3 transactions a month without needing an assistant, with being able to do a good job. I'm seeing the question, what number should you measure in your business? And I like answering a lot of questions like this. Yes. There's a great book by one of our industry leaders, Gary Keller, called The One Thing. And oftentimes what you can do is you can dial it down to one number, which is your North Star, which as long as you hit this number, you'll see I have 50-25-1 on my hat. I have it tattooed on my wrist. That's what I track for my connections and contacts each and every day, because I know that math will work. I'd love to be able to share a spreadsheet with you. GoGo has multiple revenue streams. So what I do is there's a great book called Red Light, or called Lean Startup. And what it talks about in there is having your red light number, which if you make blank in this revenue stream, you need to stop. You need to look at, hey, is this really worth doing? You've got yellow light, which means that, hey, we did pretty well. We didn't exactly hit the numbers that we wanted, yet we have enough evidence now. And then you have a green light. And so the way that I track my numbers is I have a red light, yellow light, green light for every single income stream that I have. And then I hold those numbers accountable. I asked Glenn once, and by the way, if you aren't thinking about questions to ask our leadership, I would highly encourage you to write down questions. And I got an opportunity at Topgolf to ask Glenn a question. I said, Glenn, with growing this company, how did you manage cash flow? Because could you imagine the stress that Glenn had trying to manage the cash flow of growing versus rewarding himself? And Glenn said this: I knew my expenses, and I knew I had to keep my revenue above my expenses. And that's how Glenn's built this company. He goes, I just made sure that I knew what my expenses were. And if I needed more revenue, I just went out and got more revenue. It was pretty simple in how he put it. And it was like, so here's what I would encourage you to do, whoever asked that question. Go get somebody that's not emotionally attached to you and start showing them the numbers. When they start asking you, what will happen is you will lead them down the path and the numbers that you need to start to track, and you should be able to help self-discover. Tim, what would you say people need to track in their business?
What they should track in their business?
Correct. For your seats in the stands.
They need to track number of conversations, whether it's for sales business and or rev share organization, number of appointments met, and then of course the income and expenses.
Well, I was just going to type out also how many books you read. Meaning, I love asking questions. Tim, could you make yourself again? I love asking the questions when I meet people is, hey, how many books have you listened to in the last year? And typically what I find is if you're not a listener, chances are your net worth is typically lower. And I know that's a broad stroke there, yet I find the more books that people listen to, usually the higher their net worth is. So if I could suggest anything is listen to at least a book a week. I mean, you get people's decades of work in 3 to 4 hours listening to it at 1.5 times the speed. So Tim, thank you for those numbers. Gogo, how about you?
If I may add to those books, so as much as I love reading, reading puts me to sleep. Like seriously, if I can't fall asleep, I start reading a book and it puts me out. So I can only, believe it or not, I can only read standing up. So I set my alarm every single morning for 10 minutes because I have the tendency to just automatically go to do anything else on my phone. So I set an alarm for 10 minutes, or a timer, I should say, and I have to stand and read, and I have a Audibles or whatever that's called, the Kindle on my phone, and I stand around with my morning coffee and I read on my cell phone. So you have to make the time for it, because if you don't, you're just not going to do it. The other thing that started the fire in me, guys, back in the day, Oprah used to have 2 shows. One was called Mastermind and one was called Super Soul Sunday. And you probably can find all the episodes on YouTube. That's what really got me, because just as Hank said, you will learn so much from other people's mistakes. And those episodes are really about anybody who's somebody in this world, from the Deepak Chopras to the Tony Robbins, and they will tell you what they went through in life and what are the lessons they learned. And it's much better to learn a lesson from somebody else's mistake than your own. So those were the ones that changed my life.
Track your people and who you're pouring energy into.
Alicious, tell us a little bit more about that.
have your list. Hank likes 36. That's his number of A's, but figure out who you're going to put your energy into, because your energy is not limitless. Figure out what you're doing for them, how much energy you're going to spend, and what your standards for them are going to be around. That'll save you money and time and be able to grow your business.
Well, Alicia, we talk a lot about math, and one of the things that I came up with is most of us don't have an income problem. Who on here besides me has ever had a cash flow problem? Do me a favor, type cash flow in there if you've ever had a cash flow problem. One of my financial coaches leaned on me pretty hard once, and I always have a backup to everything except for my wife, and I flew my financial advisors in, and then my local financial advisor came, and he called me out in front of everyone, and I actually didn't talk to him for about 6 months after that because he probably pushed a little bit too hard, yet he needed to, and he said this, he goes, Hank, you keep talking about having more cash on hand, yet you're full of, and then he said the S word. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, Hank, you keep saying that you want to have more cash on hand, yet you're doing other things. And I'm like, Andy, I'm paying my mortgage ahead. I'm paying off debt. I'm doing all these things. He goes, so which one is it? Do you want to pay off debt? Do you want to pay your mortgage ahead, or do you want to have cash on hand? And it was the punch in the jaw that I actually needed. So with the election year coming up, had no idea that COVID was coming. My wife and I doubled down on having cash on hand. So here's the formula. When you don't have an income problem, solve your cash flow problem. Once you no longer have a cash flow problem, here's what you do. You ref your life. And it's an acronym for relationships, energy, and finances. I've got to have two of the three. So let's look at the first one, relationships. The people way smarter than all of us say that you can handle about 120 real relationships. And so I looked at that because Facebook has kind of changed how we looked at friends. If I don't emotionally get affected when somebody has a life event happening, that should tell me what the relationship is like with them. So here's what I believe. You take care of your A's and your B's, take care of your relationship. So if a relationship ever asks me for something, I'm at a yes. Then what I do is after that interaction, I ask myself, is my energy better or is it worse? And as long as it's better, I don't have to worry about finances. See, when you're abundant and you know that you only volunteer 10% of your time, and I'd like to tell a story about the 10% and Dave Kennard, our current president. When you track your time and you hold your hours accountable, what will happen is you'll start knowing what you need to put into those hours. And here's what I know. You take care of your relationships, you take care of your energy. You don't have to worry about finances. Joanna, did you need something? Are you cutting us off? I see you up here on stage. Or you got something to add? So when we look at this, when you look to referee your life and you take care of your relationships, you take care of your energy, the finances will show up. Dave Kennard, all of you should know Dave. Dave reached out to me when we were having 3 retreats in a row at our retreat home. And he said, Hank, can I have a phone call? Now, this was before he even joined EXP. And I said, Dave, sure, I'll send you my time trade link. And he messaged me back and he goes, Hank, you're 3 weeks out. I said, yeah, I'm happy to have a call, yet it's 3 weeks out. He goes, well, I'd like to have a call this week. I said, perfect. I sent him a link to pay me $1,000. And he goes, Hank, it's $1,000? I said, yeah, I'm happy to have a phone call. Yet if you want to make it urgent, it's going to cost you. He goes, okay, I'll pass. So the interesting thing was when we went to the influencers meeting, he walked in as the president of the company. And I went up to him. I said, hey, man, we good? He goes, yeah, I appreciated the fact that you were willing to give me my time, just maybe not on the time that you wanted. See, I think so many of us, what we do is we trade significance versus sales. And I believe that you should be getting sales for what you do for sales should give you significance. I only volunteer 10% of my time. Now think about that. What if only 10% of your time wasn't held accountable for an income? What do you think your life would look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road? All right.
I add very quick to the time.
Yep.
The way I learned it finally is that when someone asks for an hour of your time, that's an hour of your life. You're never going to get that hour back. Our life is not unlimited. So you have to make sure that whoever you're spending that time with, it deserves an hour of your life.
Ellen Gogo, I believe that you would agree with this, and you tell me if it's different. I think time is more valuable than money. So when I help people come on board with EXP, I don't make any promises. Here's what I share with them. You won't outwork me. You'll never be able to say that I wasn't there for you. First time you waste my time, I'll educate you, because that's one thing I love about our leadership is they're not about fear. They're not about having you be scared. The second time after I educate you, I'll warn you. And the third time, you'll be dead to me. See, I believe that we teach people how to treat us. And in order for our company to be sustainable, we can't make promises. If you want to make it in rev share or anything that we're talking about, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to probably take more work than what you think. And yes, time is money. So Gogo, I couldn't agree more. And so here's another observation that I've made. If you start treating your hours outside of the dollars for hours that you're trading on wealth building activities like listening to books, reading books, instead of the idiot tube and watching TV, here's what I believe. Write down how much per hour you make right now for trading dollars for hours. I believe that if you start spending that time outside of trading dollars for hours working on yourself, you'll start making that amount every single hour of the day. So for example, if you make $100 an hour for trading dollars for hours, there will become a point where you start making $100 an hour, 24 hours a day. Gogo talked about horizontal and vertical income. Until you start making money every single hour of the day, you're going to end up not able to build the wealth that you want to build. Alicia, Tim, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'll add this thing. I love the conversation. And it's like John Maxwell's The Law of Explosive Growth. You know, I lead different organizations, church and that as well. And I hit this same ceiling of achievement with leading people and having multiplication happen within our organization over there as well. So I had to stop allowing anyone to come, like, just get my attention and get close to me. And I had to identify who's going to be the 7 people that I'm going to lead this through. And so I definitely agree that tracking time where you invested, it needs to have a return. Couldn't agree more.
Well, that's one of the things that some people have challenges with is relationships versus friendships. And I've been studying this a lot lately because, frankly, I do 2 things great. I do family great and I do business great. And I'm average at best in everything in my life outside of that. And that's been very intentional. And so the reality is the relationships that helped me buy 42 rental properties by the age of 22 versus the relationships that have helped me build the RevShare organization to 900, we just hit 950 gross, 638 net, 23 FLQA, 34 FLA, are different. And I think that's what sometimes people struggle with is how do you recognize what relationships are relationships for a season, relationships for a reason, and relationships for life. And I made a decision this last week that it's more important for me to have relationships and help people get what they want out of life than necessarily having a bunch of friendships. And that was an intentional choice. And what I'm going to ask everybody to do is start running their numbers around the choices that they're making. So Alicia, we're gonna give you a couple of minutes here. What, in parting words, what is the one thing that you would like everybody to hear out of this talk from your perspective?
That's a great question. You're always good for that. The one thing I was thinking when you were talking is about cash flow. It might not be the one thing I want them to remember from this talk, but I remember looking at about 5.5, 6 months out and telling you I can predict a cash flow problem. And 10 years ago, what I wouldn't give to be able to predict a cash flow problem and then be able to change it. So maybe the one thing I'd want them to know is the more you look at your numbers, the more power you have over being able to change and adjust. Because if I know 6 months out, I can change what I do, and I did. I adjusted and fixed it.
What I think that makes such a difference is when you are no longer worried about cash flow, you're no longer reacting and you can respond. And I'm so glad that my financial advisor leaned on me and said, Hank, go get 6 figures cash sitting in the bank. And it's not about returns or anything else. I'm the best return on any investment. So when I'm not freaked out about the next 90 days and you're sitting there on 6 figures of cash, you can do things differently. You can play the longer game. You're not worried about whether or not you're going to be able to make your bills. So Tim, what about you? What would you like everybody to walk away with from this session?
You have to track. You have to track what's important. We've talked about tracking conversations, income, financial expenses, knowing the numbers. But if you don't track anything, nothing is going to grow. I think Gogo said that earlier. So track what's important and measure it weekly, monthly, quarterly, and then annually. And then year over year, your life has to default to get better.
Well, and in reality is if you just looked at our math up here on stage, I think that you can predict what our goals are, where we're going to be in 12, 24, 36 months, because when you look at everything that we're tracking, it just becomes a math equation. Who here besides the three of us up on stage would like your income just to become, oops, a little mirror effect here, to be just a math equation? My wife and I, we've gotten to a point where we know what we put into our schedule is what will come out the other side. And a lot of times it happens through subtraction, not addition. So we're going to open up here. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. So if you're not in a quiet spot, do me a favor and go ahead and unmute yourself. We're going to see if we can attempt to unmute people. And if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. It looks like we have a survey here. Do us a favor, give us feedback. If you think this was great and you want us to be up here again next year, let us know. If you think we sucked, let us know that too. We're not getting paid for this. We're here just out of to help people. So give us feedback. We're going to go ahead and unmute and see if we have any questions.
What podcast do you guys like?
Oop, go ahead. I think I heard a female voice there.
Yes, it was me, Gladys.
Hi, Gladys.
25 and 1 again.
Great question. I coach when I was coaching real estate agents full time. What I realized was on January 1st, we'd get to January 1st, and we weren't really sure how we did the business because a lot of us worked from referral. And looking back and connecting the dots, here's what we saw. Most people interacted with 50 people a day in some way, shape, or form. I see you, you see me. So for example, Gladys, where are you from?
I'm from Texas, sorry.
No, you're good. So Gladys, imagine we're walking down the street and I've got a big EXP shirt on. There's a good chance you're going to be like, what up? And give me a high five, right? It's not like we're having a conversation. All it is I see you, you see me. That's the 50. I want 50 people a day to get eyeballs on me. So for example, we all know our president, Stacy Onan. Stacy Onan, I believe, is one of the unsung heroes within our company. I knew that a lot of people didn't know Stacy in our company. So what I did at our last EXPCon was I asked her, I whispered in her ear, I said, Stacy, can I throw you in the pool? And she goes, Hank? And I said, core value fun. And she said, yes. When I threw her in the pool, everybody at that pool party saw us. Now, there are some people that were negative towards that. And I'm okay. I just don't want anybody to be neutral. What happens from there is you go and remember when we used to shake hands pre-COVID? When you shake someone's hand, there's an exchange of energy there. Now, the 20 is an exchange of energy, and it's the start of a conversation. I call it the handshake. My goal is during that handshake, have an exchange of energy where I decide if I want to be in a relationship with them. This is where I insert judgment. And I have a saying, don't let a snapshot of someone's past ruin their future because you were not a nice person once too. However, we've got to judge at some point in order to move relationships forward. My goal is, if I'm on goal, is to have 5 conversations a day. From there, I label them as an A, a B, a C, or an F. And F stands for forget about them. My goal is to continue to upgrade my relationships, and I want to have 1 conversation a day where both of us can remember where we were when we had it. If you remember earlier in the talk, Tim could remember where he was in our first conversation. When we had an exchange of energy, his energy was like, who do you think you are? I'm Tim Cruz. Don't you know that? His words, not mine. Yet there was an exchange of energy, and therefore we kept moving the relationship along. So that's what the 50-25-1 stands for. It's how I create every revenue stream. And I look to meet people where they're at. Some people you can meet right at the 1, some people you meet at the 50, and all you're looking to do is move people along that progression. Gladys, I believe that Alicia has a great video on that on her YouTube page. If not, I've got a good video on it if you wanted to dig a little bit deeper.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Teresa asked the question, what 5 books would you recommend to improve your business? Mindset. I believe that most people don't have a strong enough mindset, and they're so easily knocked off their access. If you go to my website kind of sucks. If you go there, I've got my whole book list there, and you can download that. It's a couple $100 that we've listened to over the years. Tim and Alicia, what would you say the number 1 book is that you've read to improve your business?
Essentialism, 100%.
What was your? So Essentialism was by Greg McGowan, I believe, and he talks about sunk cost bias. That like completely changed everything for me. What was the big takeaway that you had from that book?
The 80-20 and figuring out exactly what your biggest purpose is and only doing those activities and saying no to everything else. If you're a parent, you have to read it.
Yeah, you have to. That's one of the requirements for our coaching program, 36 to Life. The first week when you come in is go through Essentialism. Books do such heavy lifting, and if you want to become more of an influencer within your community, rather than give prescription, give a book. That book will do the heavy lifting, and you'll get credit for being associated with that book. Yet stop giving so much prescription and start handing out books where people can dig deeper. What about you, Tim?
That is such a hard question, Hank. I literally in my office, I have like 600 books behind me right now. Choose one. I'm going to say the Bible because it's helped me with one, I would say leading myself and like controlling myself better. And I don't believe that anyone can go and add value to the world, any other person or business unless they add value first to themselves. So I'm going to default and say my Bible.
I love it. Tim, what I love is the standards and principles that we hold each other to, and one of the things that I think you should invest in is who are you surrounding yourself with? Would you trade places with them? What do you admire about them? What would you not want to have your family like with that? So, my wife worked really hard on our marriage. And I believe that business is 90% mindset. It's get your personal life in order, and business is easy. Business can just be a math equation if you just subtract the drama out of it. Let's see here if we got any other questions there. Glenn asked, what book was it? Essentialism by, I believe I'm saying his name right, Greg McGowan. All right. Any other questions before we jump off here? I see. What is your favorite podcast? I'm not much of a podcast guy. I like Joe Rogan because I believe he does a great job asking questions. If I look at one of the skill sets that's probably served me very, very, very well in life is learning to ask better questions. And through asking questions, what you do is you end up finding your own answers more times than not. And so if you're looking at a skill set, I would encourage all of you to work on your ability to ask questions. And I'm not just talking surface level questions. So for example, I'll ask somebody, hey, do you know what section 179 of the tax code is? And if somebody doesn't know what that tax code is, that tells me that they're probably not that purposeful on their taxes. And that's going to change the direction that my conversation goes. And it's kind of smoke versus tire. Tim and Julie Harris have a great podcast. I've listened to a few of their episodes, especially when Corona hit. Tim was very proactive on his thoughts on what to do with Corona. And that's what I love about that. Some would say that Tim and Julie Harris and I are competitors. I've learned a lot from Tim. And I think if you start coming from abundance and you start living in a world where, the tide rises, you'll start looking at every opportunity to grow versus competition. So anybody else? I hear a lot of people.
I have a question.
Yes,
when
yes.
you on the 5, you mentioned that's 5 conversations a day, and then you grade those conversations A, B, C, or F. What's the A, the B, and the C?
Great question. I didn't do a great job on that with explaining that. I remember I was sitting in Dinah Kokoska's office and she took a phone call, so I wanted to look like I was important. So what I did was I got on Facebook and I saw that someone's dad died. And then I kept scrolling and then what I saw was somebody had a baby, and I realized that I had way more friendships than I could ever actually really have. So what I did was I started to study it. What's the math around relationships that you can have? And I believe if you have 36 A's, each one of those A's can help you do one real estate deal a year. So the A's are my people that I'm doing life with. If you look at your phone, those are, you don't need to put them in a database. You're actually spending time with them. The B's are the people that who could be A's, but you might not be spending as much time with them or have as much time on task. And then C's are people that have the attributes of being an A or B, but they're more transactional. And then F's are people that, like, for example, Tim's a good buddy of mine. If you're a racist, you're not going to be in my circle at all. So that would be an F. So if you say something, I had somebody come in my house and he goes, "Those Mexicans," and I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "You know those Mexicans?" I said, "No, Pat, you can leave." He goes, "What?" I said, "Leave my house. Get out of my house. We're done." And so, Pat and I are no longer in a relationship. I have those standards because if you don't have standards around the relationships that you have, it's not about more. It's about deepening those relationships. And do me a favor, thank Tim and Alicia for joining us. I feel super excited to be running with them. It's almost like an unfair advantage that I get getting to hang out with such great people. Also, GoGo, thank you for it. And thank you, Corporate, for putting on such a great event. If we can be of any help, follow us on Workplace. That's the best way to message us. And be well. And do me a favor. If everybody could do one favor for us volunteering our time, go be a blessing to someone that can help you. Whether it's, just being kind to someone or, giving an extra large tip. I love doing things like that.
I got